The SBA Roadshow, and I just want to start by saying that I've known Dustin Baker since like 2005, and he reminded me it was from our love of the Arkansas Razorbacks. So
don't make me call the Hogs.
I know, right? We go way back on that. But just so you know, if you're not familiar with Dustin, his SBA roots are very deep. A native of Dallas, he got his start in the SBA with NTAGGL in 1999 in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Since leaving NTAGGL in 2004, Dustin has been a consultant to the SBA lending industry. He's owned his own firm since 2009. In 2020, he partnered with Shane Lewis to form Baker Lewis, which focuses on staffing and loan placement in the SBA sector. And also, Dustin did something awesome in 2020 when he decided to move to Tulsa under the Tulsa Remote program, which is where he met the barbers who are here today to film him. Dustin is admittedly a little restless, and he loves spending time with all of his SBA friends in the industry. So those two factors collided in January when he had the idea to say the heck with COVID and start a nationwide road trip to create a show specifically for SBA lenders. The result is this, the SBA Roadshow. They follow him around the country as he interviews SBA lenders and borrowers striving to build community in the SBA industry by sharing their stories. Today, before we welcome Dustin to tell us more, we have a special treat. Season 2 of the show will launch in September, but today Dustin is sharing the trailer for Season 2 for the first time. So if you're not familiar with the show, get ready for some fun entertainment.
Usually I get like 10 takes for everything that I say, so we're gonna see how this goes today. But I have a couple of things. I don't know if you guys like the fun SBA Roadshow logo, but my daughter created this logo, so that makes this a little more fun for me. And I thought I would test my arm here, you know. We're not gonna start the wave, but I'm gonna see if I can reach the very back of the room. Look at that. All right, we're gonna go closer in this one. Whoa, nice grab. All right. Those are all extra larges, so swag makes everything more fun. Well, you guys look great. It's good to see that some of our suits still fit after COVID. And kind of the COVID-15, and it's been a while, I guess, since this has happened, like a year and a half. So we're all kind of a little socially awkward and kind of getting over those things, but it's really fun to be in a room full of people in this industry. It's been way too long. So I'd like to thank the NTAGGL board. I'd like to thank specifically my buddy Jana for inviting me to come and talk with you guys today about the SBA Roadshow, and I'd like to thank Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson also for doing their part to help us get back together again. But before we start, I actually want to make you guys all aware of an event that we have tomorrow evening in Frisco. It just so happened that this event coincides with NTAGGL's Leadership Summit, so we're trying something new without taking a 2-week road trip. We're gonna have SBA Roadshow live in one night. So Jana actually is gonna be with us with a customer of hers. We're gonna do a live SBA interview. We're gonna have audience interaction. There is free food and drinks. And so we have a couple dozen spots left for that event tomorrow night. So if you're interested, it's in kind of Plano, Frisco area. And it's 6:30 tomorrow night till whenever. Grab me or somebody from the table here when this is over, or you can shoot an email to me, info@sbaroadshow.com, and we can shoot you an invite. We do have a few spots, and we'd love to have you as our guest there tomorrow night. So, housekeeping aside, today is also the first opportunity that I have to thank a couple of new partners of the SBA Roadshow for this season. We actually have just brought on Ready Capital, it's a firm that some of you guys may know, and they have come on as our title sponsor for season 2 of the Roadshow. We also, many of you know Jennifer Blumig and Eventfully Yours. They do a lot of the work at the Mount Conference and other regional lending conferences. They're joining the show as our community development partner starting this season as well. So we're going to have a lot of fun partnership opportunities with them around these regional events, Malk included. And so look forward to hopefully seeing a lot of y'all at Malk as well. So I just want to thank them for kind of catching our vision and being willing to invest. And it's giving us the freedom to just invest some resources into making the show better. So we're excited to share that with you guys. Okay, so I'm tall, but I don't want to pull this thing off. I've seen that happen before. I want to start by asking what's kind of maybe a little bit of an oddball question for this room, but there's 125 or so folks in the room, so I want you to raise your hand if you have an English degree. An English degree. Don't be ashamed. It's okay. I know these are a bunch of bankers. I feel like a Baptist preacher. Like I see that hand in the back. Like every head bowed, every eye closed. There's not another English degree holder in this room. Guys, I know I'm out of place in these meetings, but now it's really getting real. Okay, so I'm an English degree holder. I was going to say, look around at the raised hands, and these are the people you need to ask to review your PowerPoint deck before you send it to your boss next time. So I guess you'll have to send it to me. I'll review it for a nominal fee. See me after the meeting here. So why the silly question? The silly question is because of this. English people are naturally story people. They love stories. And I want to talk with you today about stories. Another question that maybe you guys can answer. There are 4 words at the start of many stories, fairy tales, and we're very used to hearing these 4 words. Does anybody have in mind the 4 words? And just go ahead and shout it out. Once upon a time. A chorus of Once Upon a Times. Yeah, we've got a lot of Disney fans in the room. So I think that those are 4 of the most powerful words in our language. They've really become a fabric to the point where a room full of people knows exactly the 4 words that I'm talking about. A fabric of our culture, a part of our childhood. They're hopeful words. They're exciting words. You know something's coming when you hear those words. And I think that's because it's not just English majors that are story people. I think we're all story people, really. We kind of come into the world that way. I would go so far as to say that I think we need story to make sense of our world. This is, of course, how you value or evaluate loan transactions, right? So this is why we still aren't underwriting loans with artificial intelligence just yet in the SBA sector. The facts are one thing, right? A trailing 12 months, and this is what the EBITDA of the company is year over year. But when you really dig into it, what is it that's really important about that deal? It's the story. And we talk about story deals, and maybe that's not a great connotation in this room, but there are lenders that do story deals. But story is always really critical. It's important. In his book, Orthodoxy, G.K. Chesterton talks about an element of why story is so important from the earliest times. He says this: fairy tales do not tell children that dragons exist. Children already know that dragons exist. Fairy tales tell children that the dragons can be killed. And so I think it's important for us to know sometimes that it's possible to slay a dragon. Another author that we really enjoy in my family is Kate D. Camillo, and she says it just really simply like this. She says, stories are light. And if there's ever been a year where we need just a little bit more light, I think it's been this last year that we've just kind of gone through. My 4-year-old daughter, I have 4 kids, my youngest is 4, and her bedtime routine is really, really focused on stories. She's got an English major for a dad, but it goes like this. First, she has to be not read 1, not 2, but 3 books. And she gets to choose the books, and she gets to change her mind as often as she wants to in the process. And when we finally finish the books, she has to then be supplied with a new stack of books that's different that she chooses, that she gets to take to bed with her. And we had to stop doing library books because there was drool. She would sleep on them like a pillow, and there's drool on the book in the morning. So only books that we own. But she gets to take those to bed with her. And her mother and I we've realized that resistance is futile. So she gets to do these things because she's the baby. But recently she climbed up in my lap and she said something that she'd never said before, and it surprised me. I said, "What book do you want?" And she said, no. Tell me a story about when you were a little boy. So all I could think about in the moment, unfortunately, was a time when I was 7 and my dad left me asleep in a running Cadillac Fleetwood and went down to the river to go fishing. And I woke up and thought that I'd been kidnapped and honked the horn a lot, and he came up to the car. But that's another story for another day of therapy. I did tell her that story. My wife was like, "You told her that story?" So Dad of the Year. But her request really made me stop and think, and this gets to the heart of really the subject matter for today. Her request seemed kind of odd to me at first because whatever story I told her about when I was a little boy was probably not going to be as elegant or as interesting as the story in whatever book I might have read her. So why does this little girl want a story about me? So I want to try and put that into our context. Show of hands if you've been to MALC or NTAGGL or any kind of regional or national SBA lending conference ever in your career, right? And so when you come back to the hotel at night at 1 a.m., if you're coming in that time, why are there lenders in the lobby at 1 a.m. still kind of enjoying drinks and talking? And you all know that's the case if you've been to one of these. In my experience, and I've been going to these events for over 20 years, it's because we have this natural yearning to share stories. And you're sharing them with people who kind of know what you do, and it's a shared experience. And so that's what's happening at those events. And I think that will probably be what's happening when we adjourn here today, that we're all back together again. It's what makes this a lot of fun. So hearing a story that you don't have any real personal connection to or involvement in, it can be engaging and it can be interesting, but I think that sharing stories that we have a personal connection to has the potential to do really a lot more. It has the power to connect us, really, to create community. And I believe that SBA lending, and I think by a nod of heads, I think you guys would agree, this is one of the most interconnected industries that there is. Like, this is really a vibrant community of people who mostly like each other. And that's kind of unusual, I think. But I attended my first NTAGGL conference in 2000 in Las Vegas. I was 23 years old. I've been working for NTAGGL for about a year. And I really didn't know how strange it was when I walked in this room and here's 700 people that are competitors that are just really enjoy each other. And so that's the thing that keeps me and probably many of you coming back to events like this year over year over year, is that sense of belonging and community that exists in those places. And I think, again, by a nodding of heads, we would probably all agree there's just been far too few opportunities to get together and enjoy that kind of community over 2020 and the start of 2021. So it's delightful to be here with you guys today to do that. I think that when we started the SBA Roadshow, when that idea sort of crept in and wouldn't go away, I was telling somebody before this, I have about 100 ideas every day, and 99 of them are really terrible ideas, like that I really shouldn't do, whatever that idea is. And then occasionally, an idea will get its own life, and it takes off. And the SBA Roadshow was one of those. But I personally really missed seeing people, and I was just kind of starving for that. I missed staying up, way past my bedtime and swapping stories in those hotel lobbies. And I had this suspicion that everybody else really missed that too. Have you guys missed that, everybody? And so I thought, well, what if I go out and I just do that one-on-one with people in our industry? And what if we film that and then we put it out there and just try and give a little bit of that community back to help reconnect folks in our industry? So that was where the idea began, but it really wasn't until we actually got out doing this and started to get in front of people, especially the small businesses that benefit from these programs. I know all you guys, but I didn't know them. That heard those stories and really began to register how much impact our industry has out there, and how important really these stories are to tell. So I've had a number of people ask me over the last few months, why are you doing the SBA Roadshow? And I think most of them want to know one of a couple of things. I think one, they kind of want to know whether it makes any money. And I know that because they've asked that question. Two, a lot of people kind of just want to know what my angle is. It's like, I don't get it. And so to the first question, though, it's really none of their business. I'll say that for as much money as it makes, we may as well have started a 501c3. The answer to the second question is really that there isn't an angle. We saw an opportunity to really give back something that we were missing. We had a chance to do that. We had the freedom to go do that, and we thought the industry sorely needed it, so we tried to step into that gap and do that. So it's really, in the end, it's a labor of love. I won't lie, I was talking to John Monk earlier. The idea of getting in the car and just driving across the country is also kind of fun, and so that's a little element of it, but we don't talk about that at the house when we're talking about the next trip. I want to take a minute, and Janice said maybe you could share a couple of the stories that have been meaningful to you as you've done this. So, and I think these will demonstrate some of the points that I've talked about here. One that comes to mind in season one, though it didn't get included on any of the episodes in season one, was from a borrower in Nashville, Tennessee. He was a med school dropout. So here's a guy who he dropped out of med school 3 credits shy of finishing his MD in order to go start up a brand new business for a hair loss prevention product. Yeah. He said it was 11 years ago, and his mother only recently forgave him for doing that. But his product took off. He was balding. He figured out something that worked. It worked for him, and it took off. He got his first 7-figure order. He needed a base shampoo to mix his compound into, and so what he really needed was vats and vats and vats of Suave, right? Just a cheapo stuff he could put the medicine into and give to people to wash their hair. So he had a lot of trouble finding that. He finally found a vendor who was not in the US that said that he could provide that to him. So put down a very large deposit. Does anybody know the next part of this story? Yeah. That vendor disappeared off of the face of the planet. So he's poorer, he has no product, he has a massive order that he's got to deliver. And so what did he do? He literally bought up every single bottle of Suave shampoo in Tennessee for the next 3 weeks. He got on a calling schedule with him and his wife, calling Walmarts and Safeways, and they cleaned out every shelf. Whoever uses Suave was really upset with this guy for a few weeks there. But in the end, he got his order out. And he employs today 50 people in Nashville. His business is worth $10 million. He just got an SBA loan to buy his partner out. He's getting ready to expand to Europe and to really grow his company. And a lot of people have hair that they wouldn't have otherwise too. So I mean, there's that too. But this kind of thing is the spirit of entrepreneurialism, and you guys know it. I mean, you're doing it every day, and probably most of you could get up here behind the mic and you could recite a couple of stories just like this, or similar, right? So it's been really fun to kind of get out there and to see it on the street level. But when people ask me, though, what story has really been most kind of personally meaningful and not just entertaining in my travels so far, the one that comes immediately to mind is a doctor. in Denver, the Denver, Colorado area. And this is a story from the upcoming season. Dr. Rosa Cisneros is an OBGYN in Thornton, Colorado. I can't tell the story nearly as poignantly as she does, but I'll try to give you a flavor. It's the only remaining private practice, OBGYN office in all of northern Colorado. All the other practices in that area have sold to large companies that are really focused on getting as many patients through as possible, turning tables. And Dr. Cisneros has this really rigid, non-negotiable commitment to spending time with her clients, who are largely in a low-income area right around her clinic. And so she also has people come from as far as New Mexico and farther just to see her. She's a native Spanish speaker, and so that means many people can talk to her about a really big life circumstance in their heart language. And so it's a service that just wouldn't exist in that whole area if it weren't for this doctor. She was able to purchase her building a couple of years ago in the same building that she ran her practice out of, because the doctor who helped her launch her practice initially had invited her, before he got cancer and passed away, to put $1 down as a first right of refusal to buy that building. And so she put $1 down on this building, and when he passed away, the kids, they understood his desires, and so they came in and they offered the building to her for far, far less than it was worth, which allowed her, along with a very patient lender who walked through that process, to own that building that she'd been running her practice out of. This in turn gave her the ability to withstand the onslaught, the financial onslaught of COVID, because instead of owing rent in the teeth of an overnight recession, she was able to get 6 months of P&I payments because of the CARES Act. She was able to be really lenient with the other tenants of that building, who were all also small businesses, and really it allowed them to kind of lock arms and walk together through a really hard time. And every single one of those businesses survived the pandemic, and they're all still there. And that's a great story if I stop right there. But the really remarkable part of the story to me with Dr. Cisneros is this. During the week of March 16th, 2020, anybody remember that week? the week that all of our lives kind of flashed before our eyes, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so she's got a couple of things to deal with in that situation. Pandemic is picking up steam in a hurry. Lockdowns are starting. And Dr. Cisneros has another battle that she has to fight. So the week I interviewed her this last March was her very first week back in the office seeing patients for that whole year. She'd beaten cancer. And then as we talked about that, what really blew me away was that the way her practice made it through that time is there were 4 or 5 doctors in that surrounding community, some of whom had sold their practices to larger firms, but really knew the value of what she was doing, who stepped in to back up Dr. Cisneros so her clients could continue to come and that practice could survive. And none of these were back. I said, well, you had a backup physician. She said, not before I got cancer, I didn't. And all these people stepped in to lift her up so that practice, so there'd be practice for her to come back to. So if any piece of that puzzle doesn't exist, including the SBA loan that she received to purchase the property, the PPP loans that she received to keep her staff gainfully employed, the CARES Act funds, which made 6 months of payments for her and allowed her to stabilize her business and the other businesses there, northern Colorado would be much the poorer for it, right? And so that's the reason, that I tell that story, and the reason really we set out to tell all of these stories in the Roadshow is that I want to remind you guys, and I want to remind other SBA lenders all over the country just how important the things that you're doing every day are. And they are, and there's days where I'm sure it just doesn't feel much like it, right? It just feels like you're just turning that wheel. But what you do is critical. And I really believe that people need to hear those stories. And so that's what we're really trying to do with a roadshow. I mean, you're SBA lenders, so like by definition right now, you guys are the walking wounded. Like you're the zombie people for the last year and a half. One of our guests for the next season, she said, when people find out that I make SBA loans for a living, they ask questions like, are you okay? We joke that they give her, gift certificates to psychiatry offices and massage parlors. But it's been a really tough and demanding and exhausting season. SBA lenders are a passionate but beleaguered group of professionals right now, spending a year and a half now burning the candle at both ends, often thanklessly, to prop up Main Street America. And that's what you guys have done, and I know it's what you are continuing to do. You're like a rope bridge stretched over a bottomless cavern. And for the businesses that are brave enough to just keep going forward, you guys are the ones that are underneath them, letting them do that. And it's meaningful. So I just want to stop right now and applaud what you guys continue to do, and to thank you for doing it. As I conclude, and I will conclude my remarks, I hope you watch the roadshow, but not because my ego really needs it, or not even, my ego kind of needs it, so you should watch. But not even really because all the cool kids are doing it, although they are. And so if you want to be a cool kid, you should really watch. But I want you guys to be reminded and to be proud of how important the stuff that you do every day is. I want you to have an opportunity for 15 minutes a week to just sit down and chill and reflect and celebrate the good work that you guys are doing and the impact that it has. So, and I'll say this last, the stories that you guys are helping create really matter. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for having me. I think we may have time for a couple of questions, or we may be ready to adjourn, but regardless, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk to you guys today. So thank you very much.